Welcome back to the deep dive. I'm so glad you're here with us for season 1, episode 4.
Yeah, and a huge thank you for all the support. It's that curiosity that really lets us go deep on this stuff.
And today we're going deep on something I think everyone feels this in their bones. We're tackling that pervasive, frustrating, and sometimes just flat out ridiculous state of modern digital life.
It's that feeling, isn't it? That sinking, annoying, sometimes, white-hot rage that everything you use, everything you once loved, has somehow become worse.
Exactly. It's confusing. It's covered in ads. It's just a chore. And our mission today is to give that feeling a name, a diagnosis, actually.
We have a fantastic article on Substack to guide us. It's structured in 2 parts, which is perfect for this. We start with a clinical dialogue, this very relatable, very human conversation that lays out all the symptoms.
And then from there, we jump straight into the lab, into a scientific paper that gives us this startling data-driven framework for understanding why everything feels like it's in a state of decline.
The piece is called A Cultural Disease. Enshittificationitis.
What a name.
It's perfect. So we're going from the patient's couch to the lab bench, and we're going to mix in the humor, because a lot of this is absurd, with some pretty serious analysis of a systemic failure.
Right. So prepare yourself. This is the deep dive that's going to explain why you aren't just a grumpy, aging consumer.
No, you're a logical reactor.
Yeah.
You're reacting to a fundamentally malfunctioning environment.
Okay, let's start with that clinical picture, because it is the perfect way in. It's this case study in what the article calls visceral malaise.
And it's the dialogue, right, between a patient, a Mr. Forbrucker.
Which means the consumer, roughly.
Of course it does.
Yeah.
And his psychologist, Dr. Ungerecht, whose name means unjust, and right away the doctor is taking notes on a tablet. The pathology is in the room from the first second.
And the setting is it's misty, annoying rain outside, which perfectly reflects his whole internal state. It's not a thunderstorm, not a hurricane, just a low-grade, pervasive dampness and annoyance.
Exactly. And the patient, Mr. Forbrucker, he doesn't come in talking about algorithms or big tech. He starts with something much more fundamental. He calls it symptom cluster A, cultural necrosis.
The taste of cardboard.
The taste of cardboard. He says things just don't taste like they used to. They don't feel like they used to. They're just blah.
And it's not just about food. It's about everything.
Yeah.
The experience of life itself, the richness, the flavor, it's just gone.
Which is such a brilliant way to frame it, because right away, you stop blaming yourself. It's not a failure of your perception. It's not that you're just getting old and jaded.
Right. If everything tastes like cardboard, you don't blame your taste buds.
You blame the cardboard factory. You start asking questions about the external environment. And that leads him right to his first big example. Modern movies.
Oh, this part is fantastic. His rage against modern cinema is so pure. He says he tried to watch a new movie and it felt like it was, this is a direct quote, directed by a 13-year-old who owns a pet iguana.
I mean, what a perfect description. And the core of his frustration, which the doctor pulls out of him, is the complete loss of subtlety.
Yes. The instant gratification, the painfully simple dialogue, the constant over-explanation. He complains that the plot is just hammered into your head every 5 minutes.
Just in case you weren't paying attention. Just in case you looked at your phone for 3 seconds.
He misses the puzzle. He says he misses being allowed to be confused for 20 minutes. The story used to trust you, right? To figure things out. There were unsaid things, implied meanings.
And now it feels like a character has to turn to the camera and basically read the Wikipedia summary of the plot.
And his critique isn't even just that the quality is bad, it's that the variety is gone. He says before, you could get a dumb movie and a smart one.
Yes, the spectrum. You had your big, fun, turn-your-brain-off blockbuster, and that was totally fine.
And then you had your dense, confusing, thought-provoking film. And now it feels like everything is converging in this bland, algorithmically tested middle.
Engineered for the lowest common denominator. Stripped of any real flavor or risk to maximize, global distribution speed and reduce cognitive overhead.
And that necrosis, that decay, it extends right into music. This is his next example.
The complaint here is twofold. First, there's just this overwhelming sameness. Too many bands that sound exactly alike.
And second, this bizarre state where bands, they never retire.
The undead bands.
Yes. He says they play until they're 346 years old, just perpetually touring, churning out content for the shareholders.
And the detail that really gets him, the thing that sparks this irrational anger, is seeing a 60-year-old artist singing about skateboards.
With total conviction, singing about being a rebel instead of something age-appropriate.
Like, I don't know, cruise ships or chronic back pain or the complexities of probate law.
Something. Anything. But that refusal to evolve, to step away, that's the core of it. The commercial need overrides the natural life cycle of art. They have to keep generating yield, even if the output becomes a hollow, nonsensical version of what it once was.
The culture's just being harvested over and over again until there's nothing left.
But then we get to symptom cluster B. This is where the disease, as he puts it, goes airborne. Digital frustration and ad-littered insanity.
And this is where we've all been. He describes the internet as this descent into just constant fighting, stupidity, and you just cannot escape the stupid ads.
They're not on the side anymore. They're everywhere. They're woven into the movies he's trying to watch to escape them.
And he asks this really sharp philosophical question. Do we really need this much advertising? Is this necessary for civilization to function?
And the systemic answer, which the paper gets into later, is yes. You need that much advertising if your core product is providing less and less value. The ads have to increase to cover the deficit.
The whole function is shifted. The utility of the platform is being degraded specifically to make the advertising more effective or more necessary for revenue. The balance is just completely off.
And then he brings up the ultimate example of this waste, of this resource depletion for absolutely no utility.
Ugh, the AI waste. The 8-second video of a giraffe and a penguin dancing in a museum.
Generated by who knows how much computational power. Water, energy, rare earth metals for the hardware.
For what? It serves no purpose. It creates no insight. It's just computational excess. It's digital pollution, burning real-world resources for a fleeting, pointless distraction.
And that waste, that extraction of resources, leads him straight to the core of the problem. The extraction of our data.
Right. These companies are monetizing our behavior for billions. And what do we get in return? Mr. Forbrucker is very blunt about it.
Fuck all. Or maybe 2 weeks of premium for free.
And he gets really hung up on the language here. He hates the word free.
Because it's a lie. It's a transactional lie. You paid for it. You
Right.
paid with your attention, your time, your data, your privacy.
He insists it's not free, it's included.
I love that. That insistence on semantic accuracy, that's the healthy part of his brain fighting back against the conditioning. He's rejecting the lie that underpins this whole rotten ecosystem.
And that leads him to the final and maybe most universal digital symptom of all.
The Google problem.
Google is not Googling right.
The irony is just perfect. We turned the company name into a verb because it works so well. And now the verb is broken.
It's deliberately broken. It gives you ads, it gives you clickbait, it gives you SEO-optimized garbage instead of the one clean, verifiable answer you were looking for.
He has this great line where he says he fears they would literally shove ads up his butt if they could figure out the right insertion angle. It's this feeling that a foundational utility of modern life has just failed.
And that failure is compounded by the engineered friction, what the paper later calls the login labyrinth.
Oh, that extra minute for everything. The
That's
code they text you, the
Oh.
app you have to open to approve the login.
And it's all justified by this vague fear of being hacked. But really, it's about harvesting more data, more confirmations, and they don't care about your time. It's a massive collective waste of human time.
He sums it all up as this huge systemic betrayal. Everything favors the business. The customer is no longer right. And he feels like after the pandemic, every business got together in a global group chat on how to make Earth worse.
They all learned they could just be bad, and nothing would happen.
His whole sense of reality is starting to fray. He feels like he's in a simulation where they stopped paying for the Earth premium service.
And that's the pivot point. He's asking, is it me? Am I depressed? Am I the one who's broken?
And Dr. Ungerich finally puts the tablet down, and he delivers the diagnosis. And it's a stunner, he says. It's not depression.
Depression, he says, is a malfunction of the self.
What you have is a logical, healthy reaction to a malfunctioning environment. You have a proximity imbalance to a rotting system.
And then comes the term, the definitive clinical diagnosis.
Enshittificationitis.
It's magnificent.
Let's lock in the definition from the article because it's so precise.
Okay, so enshittificationitis is defined as an inflammatory condition. It's caused by the intentional, systematic degradation of services and cultural experiences for the singular purpose of maximizing shareholder yield.
And the keratitis is the key. That's the inflammation. It's your body, your mind, having a perfectly logical, visceral, furious reaction to the rot.
The doctor compares it to a prion disease, like mad cow disease or chronic wasting disease.
Because it's chronic and it gets misdiagnosed all the time. The patient thinks they have, I don't know, late-stage capitalismitis, which is about the whole ecosystem.
Right. But enshittificationitis is the sickness. It's the visceral felt experience you get when the specific thing you once loved gets hollowed out and replaced with a cheap, shitty version.
They want you to think you're just depressed or getting old, so you'll buy pills or anti-aging cream.
Exactly. Because if you realize it's the system that's sick, you might stop clicking. You might stop subscribing. And that's their biggest fear.
And the prescription from the doctor is just perfect. He tells Mr. Forbrooker to read the foundational text, the scientific paper we're about to get into, because that intellectual framework will stop him from blaming himself.
But then comes the punchline. The meta punchline that demonstrates the entire pathology in real time.
The doctor tells him the session is $400. But he says, if you subscribe to my Healing Hub for just $19.99 a month, this session is technically included for free.
He does the thing. The patient is processed in exactly 50 minutes, the standard commercialized therapy slot, and the diagnosis of systemic degradation is delivered via the exact mechanism of that degradation.
And the patient just says, you're literally doing the thing. It's just this perfect, tragic, hilarious end to the anecdotal part of the story.
It's the perfect bridge. We're now leaving the patient's couch and we're heading into the lab. We're getting into the technical framework from the article on Substack by Periphrasis. The paper is titled Enshittificationitis, a prionic incentive misfolding agent driving progressive degradation in digital ecosystems.
Right. This paper gives us the formal pathology. It moves beyond just complaining about misaligned incentives or monopolies. It identifies a single contagious cause.
The piedon agent.
Okay, we need to spend some real time here. What is the piedon agent and why the prion analogy?
So piedon is what the paper calls a prionic incentive misfolding agent. Now, if you remember from biology, a prion is an infectious protein. It finds healthy proteins and causes them to misfold into a diseased shape, which causes this cascading structural decay. Mad cow disease, for instance.
So it's not a virus or a bacteria, it's just a bad shape, a bad logic that spreads.
Precisely, and piedon does the same thing, but instead of misfolding proteins, it misfolds incentive architectures. It's the self-replicating logic of growth at all costs.
So it's not just a bad business model. It's an infectious idea that gets into a platform and fundamentally rewires its DNA. It makes it prioritize short-term extraction over, say, long-term function or user trust.
That's it, exactly. It alters the behavioral logic of the host, the platform, like a Google or a Meta, to prioritize extractive behaviors over its core function. Ads, data sales, subscriptions become more important than a clean interface or accurate search results.
And the mechanism for this is called the weaponization of convenience.
A powerful phrase.
It is, because convenience is the bait, right? It's why we adopt these platforms in the first place. They're easy, they're useful, and then that initial trust, that convenience, is leveraged against us.
The paper describes how these once useful services get bundled into these increasingly parasitic financial structures. They call them subscription pyramids.
And the top of the pyramid is pure profit, shareholder yield. But the base, what's the base made of?
The base is you. It's your accumulated attention, your time, and as the paper says, your diminishing dignity. You keep paying, you keep accepting the worst service because the inconvenience of leaving has been engineered to be astronomically high.
And that explains why it's so systemic. It's not just one company doing this. It's Amazon, it's Netflix, it's Dr. Ungerecht's Healing Hub. They all end up looking the same as they rot.
Which the paper explains with another great term, incentive convergent mimicry.
Meaning they all independently stumble upon the same bad idea.
Exactly. The piedon agent is so effective, so ruthlessly logical in a shareholder-driven market that different platforms all arrive at the exact same extractive strategies and then rush to call it innovation.
It creates this homogenized ecosystem where failure itself is standardized.
Yes. The paper uses the analogy of identical rental cars. The branding might be different, a Ford or a Chevy, but the mysterious stains on the back seat and the broken air conditioning are always in the exact same place.
And the infotainment system is demanding a subscription to unlock the radio.
It's an ecosystem where every service fails in the same predictable, frustrating way. And that brings us to the data. We have to look at the systemic symptoms that the article on Substack documents in its figures.
Okay, let's dive into Figure 1. Host consolidation and functional necrosis. And right away, the paper points out this paradox of hypertrophy despite decline.
Which is the very scientific way of saying the platform is getting bigger, fatter, and more powerful, even as the quality of its service goes right into the toilet.
That's the key. We see this aggressive, sustained growth, the hypertrophy among the big dominant platforms. Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, Meta, Microsoft, Netflix.
And the source data shows just how dominant they are. They account for something like 10 to 12% of the total digital sector revenue. The concentration is massive.
And when you have that level of concentration, the whole game changes. You don't have to compete on user experience anymore.
You don't need to. Your competition is just as bad. So you start competing on who can monetize the deterioration most efficiently. The incentive to actually create a quality product has been completely removed by market dominance.
And that trajectory leads to what the paper calls the saturation point, or the much better name,
The Ungerecht Vorbruker collapse point.
love it. And this is the point where the density of the extractive stuff, the ads, the tracking, the pop-ups, reaches a critical mass.
Yes.
An LD50, not for the user's life, but for the platform's usability.
And once you cross that threshold, the host, the platform, enters a state of functional necrosis.
Necrosis, so like dead tissue. The platform is basically being kept in a coma.
That's a perfect way to put it. The paper says it's maintained in a minimally viable state, dead enough to maximize extraction, yet alive enough to prevent mass consumer emigration. It's engineered mediocrity. The platform is no longer a tool for you. It's a tool for extracting capital and data from you.
And the most illustrative part here is the behavioral triad of a necrotic platform. Let's break these down because you see them every single day. First, they refuse to fix long-standing, annoying bugs.
Why would they?
Yeah.
Fixing a bug that just slightly annoys users but doesn't stop them from logging in is a waste of engineering time. That time could be better spent designing a new, more effective dark pattern.
Right. Second, they introduce new, more profitable bugs. What on earth is a profitable bug?
So a profitable bug isn't a crash. It's an engineered flaw, often disguised as a feature that subtly pushes you toward a high-margin outcome. Think about an interface that accidentally makes it easy to double charge, or a subscription renewal confirmation that's so subtle you miss it.
So they see it's generating revenue, even if it's from user error, and they just leave it in.
They leave it in. The bug serves the misfolded incentive of the PO1 agent, so it's no longer a bug. It's an undocumented feature.
And the third part of the triad, they publicly insist that users love the new experience.
Despite all evidence to the contrary. Despite the forums being on fire, despite social media being filled with complaints, they just put out a press release about their exciting new direction.
That triad is the perfect summary of the institutional gaslighting of this whole environment. The customer isn't just not right, the customer is now the target.
It's proof that the system is designed to reward failure, as long as that failure produces quarterly growth.
Okay, that brings us to figure 2, which looks at the direct financial cost of all this. Subscription metastasis and economic load.
And this gets right back to Mr. Vorbruker and Dr. Ungerecht's healing hub. The paper calls this insidious shift subscriptive learned helplessness.
Learned helplessness, that's a dark concept.
It is. It's the idea that we, the users, have been conditioned to accept paying a monthly fee forever for a degrading service. We now see it as a natural law, like gravity or taxes. It's the normalization of mandatory continuous extraction.
And the numbers quantifying this are just staggering. The average number of active digital subscriptions per consumer, it went from about 1.2 in 2010 to a projected 4.5 by 2025.
That is a huge cumulative financial burden on the average person's wallet. But it's not just the number of subscriptions, it's the price hikes. The paper shows that these prices are inflating way faster than the normal consumer price index, especially after 2020.
Because they have you locked in. They know the switching costs are too high, so they can raise the price 10, 15%, and most people will just sigh and pay it.
The paper calls it metastasis for a reason. Like a cancer, it spreads. It converts what used to be a one-time purchase or a utility into a recurring rent that just hollows out your economic resilience.
And this leads to maybe the scariest part of this section, the zoonotic jump to hardware.
This is where the P-Gall agent escapes the realm of pure software and infects physical objects. The Internet of Things.
You mean my smart toaster? Is my toaster going to start demanding a subscription?
That is precisely the example. Physical devices begin to suffer from feature atrophy. The hardware is perfectly fine. The toaster can still heat bread. But the software layer, its incentive brain, starts to decay. It locks basic functions you thought you owned behind a recurring fee.
So what happens? My toaster won't toast unless I subscribe to the Crispness Premium package.
It's more subtle than that, usually. It targets the advanced features that made you buy the expensive smart toaster in the first place. It might disable the bagel setting, or the precise browning control, or the gluten-free algorithm. It reduces the device to its dumbest, most frustrating state to force you up the subscription ladder.
And the paper describes the user's progression through this as, what, confusion, denial, and then acceptance?
Yes. First, confusion. Hey, didn't this used to work? Then denial. I am not subscribing to my toaster. That's insane. And finally, defeated acceptance. Fine, take my money. Just give me the bagel setting back.
Subscribing to a toaster, it is the perfect, absurd microcosm of this entire disease.
And the way that disease is transmitted is through the mechanisms detailed in Figure 3, dark pattern intensification. The paper calls this viral shedding.
Okay, so dark patterns, let's define those again. These are the primary transmission vector for the PSD1 agent.
Dark patterns are just interface designs that are intentionally manipulative. They're designed to steer you, pressure you, or mislead you into making a choice you wouldn't normally make, a choice that's almost always against your own best interest.
And the stats in the paper are just bleak. Audits show something like 95% of popular apps use at least one dark pattern.
And social media and e-commerce sites are the super spreaders. They're the ones pioneering these techniques. The paper lists a few specific types of this viral shedding.
Let's run through them. There's confirm shaming.
Oh, the best. That's a little pop-up where to decline an offer, you have to click a button that says, "No thanks, I prefer to suffer and be miserable." It's emotional manipulation.
Then there are the false scarcity countdown timers. Only 2 left at this price. Sale ends in 5, belong 4.
And then you refresh the page, and the timer starts all over again. It's completely fake, designed only to induce panic.
And my personal favorite, the obstructive cancellation mazes.
Designed by someone who, as a paper puts it, resents the concept of free will. It takes 1 click to subscribe and 12 screens, a phone call, and a blood sample to cancel.
That imbalance and friction is the entire retention model. But it's not static. The patterns are getting smarter. The paper talks about a sophistication shift.
Right. In 2010, a dark pattern was just a tiny hidden X button on an ad.
By 2025, we've moved on to algorithmic nudging. This is where it gets really terrifying.
It is. Algorithmic nudging means the user interface is changing in real time based on your specific detected vulnerabilities.
Give us the example from the paper, because it's chilling.
The paper posits a system that detects, through your search history or your social media interactions, that you've just gone through a breakup. You're emotionally vulnerable. The algorithm then adjusts the ads and content it shows you. It starts pushing high-margin comfort items like premium ice cream delivery or addictive, time-sucking mobile games.
It weaponizes your personal emotional state against you for profit. That is pathology at its absolute peak.
And that level of sophistication leads to a final, terrifying concept: incentive autoimmunity.
Like an autoimmune disease where the body attacks itself.
Exactly. The platform's own core systems start to identify healthy user behaviors as threats. Things like trying to protect your privacy, logging off for a while, deleting your account.
Things a healthy person would do.
Right. Those behaviors are identified as pathogenic to the platform's growth mandate. So the platform begins to actively attack you, the user, to protect the misfolded P011 agent. The user acting in their own self-interest becomes the enemy of the system they rely on.
We are no longer the customer. We're the nutrient source.
The platform is fully transitioned from a tool to a parasite.
Okay, let's pause and bring this all back to the listener. The system is sick, it's growing, it's extracting money, it's spreading. What is the actual toll on us? This is figure 4, psychological and cognitive morbidity.
And the data here is stark. It shows a sharp inflection point in reported rates of anxiety, depression, and loneliness that correlates almost perfectly with the proliferation of these manipulative algorithms, what the source calls the viral load.
This isn't just a vague feeling. The paper gives names to specific, measurable clinical manifestations.
The terminology is so good. First, there's digital spongiform encephalopathy, DSE. Spongiform means full of holes, like a sponge.
So it's describing your brain feeling like it's full of holes. You can't focus on a book. You can't follow a complex thought.
It's the hollowing out of your cognitive pathways from constant interruption. Notifications, context switching, the endless scroll. Your brain is being rewired for perpetual, shallow engagement.
Then there's keyboard warrior-associated syndrome, KROAS.
This is the inflammatory neurological response you get from platforms designed to maximize conflict. Outrage drives engagement. Engagement drives ad revenue. So the system is designed to make you angry and stressed.
So that feeling of being physically drained after an online argument, it's not just in your head. The system is deliberately triggering a neurological stress response.
And finally, a really devastating one for our sense of self: platform-induced dysmorphia. This is the distortion of your self-perception from living inside these curated feedback loops.
You start to lose track of who you actually are versus the algorithmically curated version of you that gets the most likes.
The algorithm is constantly whispering the most profitable version of you into existence. It becomes hard to tell the difference.
And alongside this psychological damage, there's the compounding financial damage. The paper calls it economic hypoxia.
A lack of financial oxygen, the subscription stacking, the dark patterns, it all ends up. And in severe cases, disposable income is so consumed by these recurring digital rents
The 4.5 subscriptions, the toaster premium.
that people have to schedule buying basic necessities like socks or coffee around their digital billing cycles. That's not autonomy, that's subservience.
And all of this leads to a psychological endpoint the paper calls expectation collapse.
This is where we just give up. We stop expecting things to get better. We stop demanding quality. We just try to mitigate the symptoms. We accept that paying for broken things is the new normal.
Which brings us directly to figure 5, the autonomy dependency decline. This is the late-stage relationship. We lose our autonomy and we gain dependency.
The paper has this brutal line. It says users are left with just enough agency to enter their credit card details. That is the only freedom the system wants you to have.
And they achieve this through what they call consent fatigue. The privacy policies are too long, the cancellation mazes are too complex, we get tired of fighting.
So we just click accept all, we give up. And once you're in, you're trapped by those massively increased switching costs. The paper says they've increased by nearly 350% in key sectors.
That's not just a number. That's the 2 hours you spend on a chat with a bot trying to cancel a service. That's the deliberate bottlenecking of your data when you try to move to a competitor. That friction is a calculated cost designed to keep you locked in.
Retention through hostage taking, not through value.
And the final insult here is cognitive outsourcing. We become so overwhelmed that we just stop thinking for ourselves.
We let the platform tell us what to watch, what to listen to, what to believe, even whether or not we're having a good time. We offload the difficult, energy-intensive task of having personal taste to the machine.
And our identity gets replaced by the recommendation engine's latest misinterpretation of our data, all based on what will maximize the next click.
The cycle of self-definition is completely hijacked by the parasite.
Okay, let's zoom out for the final, big picture. The ecosystem collapse trajectory in Figure 6. This is the endgame.
And the key finding here is that the system doesn't fully collapse. The Ecosystem Collapse Index, ECI, shows this accelerating rise in systemic load, but then it stabilizes. It reaches a state of advanced parasitic equilibrium around 2025.
Stability without health.
Precisely. The system finds the perfect balance point where it can extract the maximum amount from us without actually killing the host. It's a chronic, managed illness.
And the paper talks about the physical manifestations of this, the utility plaques.
Right. Just like biological prions form plaques that kill brain cells, these misfolded incentives form hard barriers in the digital world, ad hedges, and subscription gates that block access to information and lead to what the paper calls irreversible spongiform market decay.
The useful parts of the internet are clumping together behind paywalls and ad walls.
And it's all locked in place by the terminal feedback loop. This is the 6-stage cycle that ensures the disease perpetuates itself.
So it starts with host misfolding, which leads to extraction, which causes consumer morbidity. But then the cycle has 2 critical stages that stop it from breaking down.
The first is societal normalization. That's the expectation collapse we just talked about. We all just shrug and accept that this is how things are now. There's no collective resistance.
And that public resignation feeds right into the next stage. Regulatory inertia.
The institutional blindness.
Yeah.
The governance lag. By the time regulators even begin to understand the problem, the platforms are already too big, too complex, and too deeply embedded in the economy to be meaningfully challenged.
And that lack of intervention just reinforces the platform's dominance. And the cycle starts all over again, but faster this time.
It's a perpetual motion machine of degradation.
It's an incredible framework. Dense, but it brings so much clarity to that rage Mr. Forberger was feeling. It explains why we all feel like we're in a simulation that's slowly falling apart.
And that's the core takeaway for you, the listener. Enshittificationitis is a coherent, structured way to understand your frustration. The sickness you feel is real. But the fault isn't with you. It's not your personal grumpiness or your psychology. You are having a logical reaction to a system that is actively, intentionally rotting around you.
So if the system has reached this parasitic equilibrium, what's the prognosis? Is there any hope for a cure?
The article on Substack is pessimistic. It suggests that without major structural intervention, Basically, a kind of gene therapy to remove the growth at all costs directed from the platform's DNA. The system is just destined to stay in this degraded state.
A chronic illness.
Exactly. The extraction might slow down a bit once we're all completely squeezed dry, but it will persist in this state of managed decay for a very, very long time.
Wow. Well, if this deep dive has resonated with you, if it's given you that same sense of piercing clarity, please remember where this analysis comes from. The foundational text, A Cultural Disease, Enshittificationitis, is from the About Something Substack publication by the author Perry Phrasis.
The level of work it takes to synthesize all of this, the psychology, the economics, the tech, into one cohesive data-backed theory is immense. It's exactly the kind of independent, critical work that needs support.
So we strongly encourage you, if you appreciate this kind of deep analysis of the systems that shape our lives, please consider subscribing to the About Something Substack, support the author's work, and if you can, consider a paid subscription. You would be directly supporting a platform that is actively resisting the PON1 agent.
And we'll leave you with a final provocative thought to chew on. If we are all being conditioned through this expectation collapse to accept that paying more and more for a worse and worse experience is normal, if that just becomes the baseline for everyone, what value will we place on the rare platforms that still try to resist this disease? And given the relentless pressure of incentive convergent mimicry, how long can those healthy exceptions possibly survive?
Thank you for joining us for Season 1, Episode 4 of The Deep Dive. We will see you next time.